It's interesting. There's a lot of young adult adaptations happening at the moment, and some of them are really great, and some of them you're starting to say, well, I kind of seen the love triangle and so on before. I think what's so special for me about Ender's Game is that it's very much about the internal journey of a young boy and his coming to terms with his nature and who he is, which is something quite tricky to put on screen. But it's set in this epic, amazing visual landscape with the battle room and these great simulation room scenes. So for me as a filmmaker, this is an opportunity to explore a young person who is very intelligent and mature in his way of thinking. I think one of the reasons the book is so popular, and certainly why I loved it, is because it in no way talks down to kids. Kids are smaller people, but they are very smart, and they experience the world in a very intense way. I sometimes think as we get older, we lose that intense feeling that we have when we're younger about what is right, what is wrong, who am I, is this the right thing to do, is this not? We become complacent and we sort of, okay, well, it's just the way the world is. So in some ways, for me, you're able to explore these very powerful themes of identity, morality, the idea of us as a species having this strange duality within us of both our capacity for tremendous kindness and compassion, and an equally powerful capacity for violence and aggression, and we do terrible things and we look around us, and young people feel that very intensely because as we grow up we go, our innocence is being shattered. At some point when you're older, you go, I'll get shattered, that's just the way life is. So I love the fact that this novel, albeit about young people, is really about very adult themes, and children are more than capable of wrestling with those. I want to go to this movie with my kids because there's something about this movie that we can talk about.
What do your kids think of this material? Have they read it?
Well, they're a little young, so they're going to have to wait a couple of years. So no, mine are 6 years old, so they have to wait. They're twins.
Hey, Ender was drafted when he was 6.
And by the way, they know all about Ender, and we've talked about it, and they're all the images. But whether they're quite ready to cope with the themes that are really aimed at more young adults and adults. We are, after all, PG-13, not PG-6. I'm not sure, but my point is simply that as a parent, so often it seems to me, looking at materials coming out, is this something that I can go to as a parent with my kids or separately from them if they don't want to be with dad, and yet talk about, because it has great themes and ideas in it. What is the essence of your nature? How will you find your way given your propensity for violence and your equal and opposite propensity for kindness and compassion? Which path will you choose? And there's nothing in this movie that's just about goodies and baddies. I'm so bored with that. I've never been able to get into that. It's a terrible philosophy. Good versus evil. It's terrible. It's just not how the world is. We within ourselves have these conflicting capacities. And to be able to have a conversation with young people, as I do all the time with fans of Ender's Game, and indeed with adults who love the book, is like, what's great about Ender Wiggin? Is he's not a perfect kid. He does some pretty bad things. And then he comes to a place where he goes, my God, what have I done? I can't be this. I'm not going to be my brother Peter. I am going to be more like my sister Valentine. Can I find redemption for what I've done? These are big, fabulous sort of Shakespearean themes in a big pop culture movie. And that's what I love about it. Spectacle, and something that hopefully you can debate and argue about afterwards.
So this is a grand spectacle, but are there any really tiny details, like maybe framing of a certain shot, a prop that you love, something that people might miss that you hope they catch?
Well, look, when I set out to make this movie, it's like, okay, how am I going to do this? This is a movie that is about what goes on inside the mind, a lot of the time, of a young protagonist. In the book, it's beautifully described what he's thinking. In the movie, unless you have this hokey voiceover saying, I'm now thinking this, which is horrible, you have to intuitively feel what that character is thinking. So part of the fun in this movie, which I hope people will see, is that there's tremendous amounts of extreme close-ups with eye lines very tight to lens, meaning that if I'm taking your photograph now as the actor, and I'm the other actress, I'll have that actor put their head right against this camera lens and make you play to this. You're virtually looking into the camera. And there are a few moments in the movie where he actually looks directly into the camera, breaks the fourth wall. You go, can this work? Because I want the audience to get inside his head. So these extreme close-ups really help us get into. We're not, looking at him from the sides and more. You go, wait a minute, he's just about looking at me. I can feel what he's thinking. So that's one part. But then the next shot is about, whoa, huge expanse, diving out into battle room. So when I talked originally with the director of photography, my wonderful friend Don McAlpine, I said, Don, there's really like 2 lenses we need for this. It's like 120 millimeters of close-up, and then like super wide 21 mil shots. And of course we used a lot of other lenses in between. But you want to capture the epic and the intimate. And so if we've done that, then I think the story will come across as both an intimate character study as well as an epic adventure.
And now can you tell me about some of the challenges about adapting the material to screen? Because a lot of it works really great in the book, some of it might not be cinematic. Do you have examples of maybe an instance where you wanted something so bad and you made it fit into the film, and something where you just had to, cut it off and say we can't do it?
Well, let's start with what I cut out, because you always, please fans, here's why I cut it out. A film is a 2-hour experience, give or take, about as long as the human bladder can last, right? A book is something you read over a period of time, and the book is so rich, and you could make a 15, 20-hour epic series out of this. We set ourselves the task of making a feature film, 2 hours, big spectacle. So what has to go? What can go? My focus was on Ender. You want to latch onto this kid and never leave him in order to really feel what it's like to be him. Which means that to the extent that other characters interact with Ender, they're in the movie. But to the extent that you go away in the book and spend time with Peter and Valentine without Ender, that's not in the movie. So to those fans who wanted more Valentine and Peter, I'm going to be honest up front and say there is not as much Peter and Valentine. They're there insofar as they interact with Ender.
Would you ever consider doing that component of the book as maybe a web-based bonus or something like that?
That's actually a really interesting idea. It could be. I mean, the other reason why I felt okay letting that go, apart from just I gotta let something go, I can never make this in 2 hours, and if I keep it, then I'm shortchanging Ender, and I didn't want to shortchange Ender. It's Ender's game. But the other reason was, when the book was written in 1985, I mean, there was just, the web was barely existed. And this notion of blogging and having the power of the blog was really, really innovative, ahead of its time. But now everybody does it. So the stories about them becoming Demosthenes and Locke, which I love, are less innovative, if you like, now, even though they were extremely innovative at the time they were written. So I thought, okay, now everybody gets blogs. It's like, wow, did you see what these kids did? They blogged and they changed people's minds. Yeah, this kid's doing that now. They do it. He predicted the future, Orson Scott Card, when he wrote that. So I felt okay letting that go.
And now, I know this movie has yet to come out. You don't want to get ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
But having read some of the other books, I'm curious to know, is there some sort of plan with where to go next?
I don't
know if you can go in order.
No, it's a wonderful question, and the only answer that any filmmaker can give, short of saying they've commissioned it, which they haven't yet, is let's hope that fans love the movie. I hope I've done a good job, and then I'm sure the studio, once we've released the movie, will give some thought to whether they want to do another one or not, which would be amazing. But at the moment, there's not a sequel definitely happening.